Welcome to week 5. We've passed the 1 month mark. Week 5 of exposure. The idea being that this is an exposure in the sense of an OCD exposure where you willingly confront the feared thing, germs, or the possibility of leaving the stove off, or the worry that maybe you're a pedophile, whatever your form of OCD is. The typical exposure treatment will be confronting that so it loses its power over you. And what I am trying to confront here is my perfectionism, so that it loses its power over me by releasing a very imperfect video. And this one I think will be especially imperfect because, a lot happened last night. And I'm very much, it's very fresh. So this is even more so an experiment, just to see what happens when I just talk about, I always talk about what's happening in my life at the moment I record, but usually it's stuff that's, gestated over the previous week. This, I woke up. I didn't think I was going to fall asleep last night, but I think the reason I did fall asleep last night is I was at Cape Cod with my parents, and the bedroom, I had the window open, and the sounds of the insects with the distant sound of the surf was like this perfect anodyne cocktail. Very soothing. But I didn't sleep long. I don't know how long I slept, but it was still pitch black out when I woke up. And I immediately started thinking about killing myself. Specifically, I started thinking about whether I could kill myself, even though I knew I couldn't kill myself because of the people I was in the house with. Not that I would do it then. More of like a long range, is this an escape hatch? Of course it is an escape hatch. Maybe it's the only escape hatch, or maybe it's ultimately not an escape hatch. Who knows where that leads? But kind of going through the social mechanics of it and realizing I obviously can't do it when my parents are still alive. But after they die, yes, I know it would be devastating for my siblings and my nephews and nieces, but not like life-destroying, I don't think. I don't think I would do it. But just feeling like basically it seems like things may be ending with Anna, and or they may not be, but it's pretty shocking, the change, and at this moment it's hard for me to see a way back from it. And also I feel more like maybe it's for the best for her. What happened, I'm feeling torn now because there's other stuff I want to talk about. But we'll stay on this thread. What happened was, so she was in Greece for the past week or so. And, so we'd been talking, but she had a very intense schedule, running this conference or at a conference, and her job and schoolwork, a lot going on, and the massive time difference. So we really didn't talk much. We mostly just exchanged voice memos via WhatsApp. And she was really struggling in a way that I haven't seen her before. I think just the sleep deprivation and the incredible pressure on her. And of course, it felt good supporting her. And I focused on supporting her, even though I, as I shared last week, was having a challenging week myself, a painful week, an unexpectedly and somewhat inexplicably painful week with anxiety, low-grade OCD, I would call it. Though it's never really low-grade. If it's there, it's there, even if it's kind of in the background. But I was focusing on supporting her. But we didn't really talk, is the point. We didn't really talk. And I left New York Sunday, came to my parents, and then Monday my parents and I went to Cape Cod, and Monday night she arrived back in San Francisco. And we talked, and she told me that she had connected with someone, with a guy at this conference, deeply. Someone who she wasn't sure if there was she was clear that she doesn't find him good looking per se, But, for her, I guess to my benefit, the mind is the most important thing. She's had partners who have been conventionally very good looking, but she's also had, like, her first partner was someone who wasn't really conventionally good looking. So she added that this wasn't someone who she found good looking, but she was very intrigued by this person's mind. And this person is fantastically wealthy. In fact, in Paros, the island she's from, when we've taken the ferry to Antiparos, the adjacent island, you pass this little island, and both times, or I guess 3 times over the 2 years I've gone to Paros, she's marveled at this island and how ridiculous it is that this is a private island. Someone owns this private island. Well, this guy, his family owns this private island. I mean, this is her mother's wet dream. A rich, well, you could probably stop there, a rich Greek person. Nothing happened between her and this guy physically, but she felt, the word she used is intrigued. And this is the first time this has happened to either of us. And of course, it's inevitable that this would happen to both of us, given enough time. And when she told me, I initially felt very insecure and very kind of needy and I was very insecure. I was very insecure. Because I think this hits on a lot of the things that I feel insecure about in this relationship, which is my lack of financial security at my age, lack of career success. Though it should be said, this person has not achieved any particular success on their own. They're the scion of a wealthy, shipping family there. But certainly, when I was in Greece this summer with her, and I left before she did, and she went on a trip with friends, and she got to see, she visited some friends, close friends, who had just had a kid, and the husband is also fantastically wealthy, and she got to spend some time in this villa, and they introduced her to a guy there. And we're kind of like, hey, wouldn't you like to have this? Which is what her mother is always saying. Why are you with the grandpa? That's what her mother calls me, given the age difference. And and I want to be clear, Anna is not a materialistic person at all. But I think, what it comes down to is she worries if we have a family together, she doesn't want to have to support that on her own. And she also worries, I think a much bigger worry is my emotional stability. As she says, she doesn't want to be raising 2 kids at once, me being one of those kids. So, and the other thing is she's very, very Greek, as I've shared. She loves Greek philosophy. It's deep in her. Greek culture. She has a lot of pride in Greece. And her English is spectacular. I would say her English vocabulary is in the top 2 percentile of native-born English speakers. So her English is far, far better than almost anyone I meet, even in New York, where you get a lot of hyper-articulate people. Like, her English is spectacular. It's the thing that I noticed about her first is the way she uses words and the extent of her vocabulary. But I think that pales in comparison to her ability to navigate and express herself in Greek. And she's talked about how she misses speaking Greek, and she has some friends who she loves talking to, in large part because she can speak Greek with them. So I think, all things being equal, she would rather have a partner who speaks Greek. I don't think that's a big factor, but I think that is something. So she shared with me on Monday night that she was intrigued with this guy, and she shared that she had told some of her friends about it, and they said, don't tell Adam until you know if there's anything really there. Like, it's premature, but she wants to share everything, and I value that. And so I felt very, very insecure, and then at a certain point she kind of was like, no, you're jumping to conclusions. She said, I love you so much, you're my partner, I want you to be my partner, but there is this intrigue. And, this guy is going to be in San Francisco in a few weeks, and I want to see him. I want to get to know him better. So I felt better after that first call, though still a little shaken. The other thing that was going on was OCD. Because, as I've shared, I had some OCD last week, because basically my plan was to be in New York for a month, and in part to do the mushroom cure in mid-October. But then my housing fell through, and I was kind of reevaluating that plan, but I ultimately reaffirmed it. So I was like, I'll go to my parents for a couple of weeks, then I'll go back to New York, stay with another friend, do the mushroom cure in mid-October as planned. And then I got word that, I think it was that same day, that conference was canceled. So I was doing it around an annual psychedelic conference, and doing it that way, as I do most years, it guarantees the show is going to sell out, basically, which is a big thing for me, because a humbling thing for me is, even though I've been doing this show for a long time and it's a fucking good show and the reviews affirm that, I have trouble putting people in seats, especially for a one-off show. A run, you can build it, but yeah, no, I won't soft pedal it. I have trouble filling seats for anything I do, really. I mean, the mushroom cure, again, a run, then it will build up in the Bay Area, but doing a one-off show in New York, there's no guarantee I can fill even 60 seats for the mushroom cure. But if I do it around a conference, takes the pressure off. I know it's going to sell out. So, but I got word the conference is canceled. Unprecedented. This conference has been running for 16 years. The conference is canceled. And now this throws into, well, should I still do the show? Because there's sort of now another underground guerrilla conference that's coming in, picking up the slack, but it's far from clear. So I'm grappling with this. And I guess I can kind of, the third thing that was going on was my father's Alzheimer's very much on display at Cape Cod. I went there with him and my mom almost exactly 3 years ago during the lockdown. And I went there somewhat, I guess it's coincidence, who knows, right after my last significant, but I use the word significant, it pales in significance compared to my relationship with Anna, but the last real relationship I had ended right before. And that was part of why that relationship ended. I was like, I want to be by the ocean, because the ocean is uniquely and what's the word I'm looking for? Invariably consoling. It never fails to deliver some degree of consolation. So I was going to go alone, but then I was like, I don't really want to be alone. And it'll be nice for my parents to come, and they'll pay for it. So we went to the Cape for a week 3 years ago. And certainly my father was not in peak condition then, but he and I could go on short hikes. He could walk down to the beach. But this, he was very limited and often not in a very good mood because he's very limited, and he's not so limited that he's not aware of it. And a lot of tension with him and my mom, because my mom, of course, has to tell him to do things because he won't remember to do things like take his pills, but he resents her for her telling him. So that was painful too. We were there for 4 nights, and every night Anna and I would talk, and every night I felt worse after these calls. They weren't all about this potential shift in our relationship. I think it was the second night the third night I was really struggling with this OCD. Should I still do the mushroom cure? Should I not do the mushroom cure? Should I go back to the Bay Area early? What should I do? And knowing, this is the thing about OCD, is I have full awareness that the more I think about it, the less certain I'm going to be. I'm not going to figure it out. If I haven't figured out the right answer within, a reasonable amount of time, a few hours, a day at most, more thinking is not going to give me what I want. What I want is a hit. I want the high, or if not a high, at least the assurance. The feeling, I want to feel good. I want to feel like, this is right. I'm looking for the right feeling. That's what every form of OCD is ultimately about, looking for some sort of right feeling. And even though I know I'm not going to find the right feeling, the harder I try, the more elusive it's going to get. The more I give into this, the more I try to figure it out. Really all I'm doing is I'm prolonging my suffering, I'm intensifying my suffering, and this is something Anna has helped me see, I'm also making it more likely to recur in the future, because of course our brains, there are neural pathways. If you keep falling into the same pattern, the more you fall into a given pattern, the more likely you're going to fall into that pattern in the future. And so abstinence for me is very clear cut. It's just make the decision, stick with it no matter how wrong it feels. Now, to be fair, there was some information gathering, meaning I was kind of assessing like, okay, well, is this other conference going to come in? How many, are a lot of people still coming to New York anyway who would come to the show? But it was really, it didn't dominate. Again, as I've said before, the OCD rarely dominates in the same way. It never dominates. It never becomes the only thing front and center, the way it was the only thing front and center for so many years of my life. But when it's percolating in the background, there's a cost. There's this sort of baseline of fear, of anxiety, of frustration, of tension, and actually I will say yesterday it really did start to get front and center as the afternoon wore on, because I'm like, I got to make the decision, and feeling my brain like hot in a way that like a car with a busted radiator. I don't know if busted radiators make engines hot, I imagine they do, but like something that was overdriving basically. Just my brain feeling, I don't mean it metaphorically, it felt to me like if you could stick a thermometer through my skull, my brain was hot. It was running hot. It was just, and tired too. And I know one thing Anna and I have learned is with the OCD, it's fine to share, hey, I'm having OCD, but sharing the specifics is not helpful. The people who can help me when I'm in it are other people with OCD who are on their own recovery path. But since part of it involved coming back to San Francisco and she's really busy, she was like, well, maybe it would help to talk a little bit. And I was going to say I greatly regret that I took her up on that, but of course it wouldn't have really changed anything. And what set me off on this conversation is she was saying how stressed she is because she has so much to do, and she has a friend in town who she's hosting this weekend. She's like, so I have to, I have him coming, and then you're coming, and then this other guy is coming. And I was like, wait, so you're putting me on the same level as this other guy? And she was like, no, I'm not. But that was, I don't know, maybe the conversation, the way it unfolded, there was this awareness that the way I was showing up to this conversation was actually bringing about the thing I was afraid of. It felt like I was pushing her away, but it felt like I was pushing her away. I was so desperate for some reassurance. But I was also, it was kind of like I was putting words in her mouth, and like in a negative way. Like at one point I said, a few nights ago, you reassured me. You said I was jumping to conclusions and that we're partners. But it sounds like what you're saying now, we're not necessarily partners anymore. And she didn't have a clear-cut answer to that one. This guy is coming to San Francisco a week from Sunday. And she wants to see him, and she should see him. I mean, I wouldn't want her not to see him on my account. But yeah, I guess what emerged yesterday that made things feel very, very grim. Well, so there's that. There's also her therapist, her therapist seems to have helped her tremendously. She met her therapist at this island, Vravdos, where everyone goes naked. There's basically no utilities or services. It's kind of like this very bohemian island, the southernmost island in Europe. So she met her therapist naked on this island. Her therapist is a former truck driver and seemingly has been tremendously helpful for Anna. Tremendously helpful. But her therapist has at times adopted, I would say, unorthodox, after Anna and I went to Mexico and had some conflict there, in Mexico, her therapist said, that's it, you need to take a 3-month break from relationships, like imposing it, like prescriptive, you need to take a 3-month break from relationships. What the fuck? I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, maybe you should consider, but her therapist was like mandating it. As it turned out, we didn't take a 3-month break. Her therapist very, very clearly does not feel, it feels to me, is not a fan of this relationship. But I think part of it is not so much me. Her therapist feels Anna has some deep, deep, dark, repressed stuff, and that she uses relationships to avoid it. And that, what she told Anna a few days ago was that Anna is basically using me. This is transactional. For the comfort, for company, because I remind her of her dad, that she doesn't really love me. And really like laying it out that way. And this concerned me because I'm like, well, basically, if this therapist is that, maybe she's right. I mean, I had never sensed that from Anna, but maybe she's right. I mean, I don't think she's right, and Anna dismisses it, but... So that's been a source of insecurity for me in the relationship. But yeah, yesterday, so what came out was, well, Anna has doubts about this relationship, and that is not news to me. And the doubts center on, again, my OCD and adjacent traits. And I think where my financial stability is, I didn't really realize till last night how big of a concern that is. I mean, I also know how much she loves me. She said in Greece, she said something about how, like, she said more than once that I could be a stay-at-home dad. Like, she's like, that's how this will work. It's like, I'll make the money, you'll be a stay-at-home dad. But I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to be successful. And also, if I had a family, I would make money, even if I couldn't do it doing this. I mean, I had raised $3 million when I was 24 years old for a venture, for an internet startup I had, which I had no fucking interest in. I was just that good at raising money, basically. It's a weird brag, but it's true. And then when that company ceased to be able to pay, when I ceased to be able to pay myself a decent salary, I applied to some jobs through Craigslist, got accepted to every job as a salesman, started a job. Within 3 months was the best salesperson there. Within 6 months was the highest level manager who wasn't a founder there, and I hated that job. It did nothing for me. But yeah, if I need to make money, I can make money. But yeah, I get her concerned. And again, I think this is a distant second to the emotional stuff. To the fact that, as she says, you know, she's like, you're so wonderful and you're so awful. It's so amazing being with you and it's so painful being with you. And as I've shared, I have no wibbly, this thing my mind does, WWIBLI, it's an acronym. What would it be like if, comparing on it to some sort of imagined better person? I've never had that, not once with her. But she's also much easier to be with. As wonderful as she is, she's not awful. As great as it is being with her, it's never painful. It really is never painful. I mean, it's painful when stuff like this comes up, but it's never like, oh, Anna's in a mood and this is kind of going to dominate for a little bit. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think my lack of doubts makes a lot of sense. She's that wonderful, and her doubts make even more sense. But I guess I didn't realize quite how acute they were, how intense they were. And I think the most devastating thing she said is she said she feels that something is missing in our relationship, which she's never said before. And she couldn't really articulate what that thing is, but I have a sense, because of things she's alluded to before, which I think it comes down to, like, this may sound ridiculous because I think I'm pretty fucking intellectual, but she's like, I mean, she reads philosophy for fun. I love breaking things down and analyzing things, but she goes a step further. I think, yeah, a lot of it may just be philosophy. She wants someone who, so at times she's hinted that that is something that she's missing here, even though there's so many other things she gets, is someone who just kind of can engage in these philosophical discussions. And we do whenever she brings it up. Obviously, I have the flexibility of mind to kind of go deep on that stuff. But yeah, I haven't read a lot of philosophy. I think I haven't read a lot of philosophy. I don't know. None of it's ever really spoken to me. None of it's ever really consoled me. The stuff that has been Zen philosophy, which is more of a practice. And I guess the transcendentalist, Emerson, has been a great source of comfort and wisdom for me. So maybe it's that. I'm sort of filling in the blanks, but maybe this wealthy dude she met has more of a philosophical background, because that's not an uncommon thing in Greece. It is kind of woven into the culture. But she feels that something is missing. And so when I add all that together, I'm like, okay, I feel like nothing is missing. From my side, for her, nothing is missing. There's nothing that as I've shared before, she checks every possible box I have and has now created new boxes and checked those that I didn't even know I had. But she feels that there is something missing. I have no doubts. Being with her is never painful. Being with me is sometimes painful. Not most of the time, but sometimes painful. She is very successful career-wise. I am, well, I don't know. Look at the view count of this video. That'll probably tell you everything you need to know. So this is all to say that, yeah, if the situation were reversed, I would have doubts too. And maybe she is better off not with me. And then there's the age difference. She's 17 years younger. And so, yeah, this is something I'm really grappling with is, am I right for her? Because I do love her. And I don't want to be with her if I'm not right for her. And this has surfaced before. Where it's like, is this even fair to her? I mean, mostly around the age difference and the fact that I will likely die first. And when I've brought that up, she said, it's my choice. And what she says specifically is she says, it's okay, I've already accepted that I'm going to be changing your diapers. And she would. I mean, she's that loyal. So, but in the middle of the night, feeling not suicidal, let's be clear here, I don't want to, but feeling like, God, I can't go on without this. It wasn't just I can't go on without this, it's that if I lose this, there's no hope. Because I can't imagine someone who is easier to be with than her, who has more the self-awareness and who just also is easy in that, like, she's beautiful, so that eliminates that part of my brain that's like, oh, is she hot enough? Amazing conversation, unbelievable sex, everything, all those boxes. And someone who's been patient with me and has helped me grow. And I think this is the thing, though, that keeps her in, is she sees how much I've changed. She said I'm the most plastic person she's ever met, not meaning superficial, meaning malleable, plastic, neuroplasticity. I can change. And she sees how much I've changed over the last year and a half together, and how much I can change even over the course of a few weeks, even over the course of an afternoon where she'll tell me something, I'll take it in, and I can kind of adjust how I'm showing up. But the reality is, being with me is painful at times, and she has these understandable doubts about financial security. And yeah, would she be better off with someone else, with a wealthy Greek, with a great knowledge of philosophy? So if it ends, I'm not trying to find someone else. If it ends, I don't think I'll kill myself. I don't think I'll kill myself. I think that's off the table. But the last time I was this in love, and I wasn't necessarily even quite this in love, I don't know, it's hard to compare, but the last time I was in love like this, when that ended 20 years ago, that's when I developed OCD. I did not have OCD before that, though I had been hospitalized. I certainly had something, but that devastated me. Destroyed me. So I don't know. It all it feels like too much right now. Especially combined with my father. And yeah, I don't know. And so that's what I was thinking about last night. And I was like, because part of me is like, oh, maybe I should do the mushroom cure because I tend to meet women at performances. But then I was like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure at a certain point I'm going to want to fuck people. But in terms of another relationship, like something Anna has said, repeatedly over the entire time we've been together, not the entire time, but certainly over the last year, has been like, maybe you need to be with someone who can support you better. And that really upsets me when she says that, because I'm like, no, you're not a therapist. That's like saying, like, I don't need a partner who can give me better therapy than you. Like, I want more healing and freedom, for sure. And so, yeah, I just can't imagine being in another relationship. If I couldn't make this one work. And I mean, and I guess that's the damning thing about this, is if I can't make this one work, I don't think it's about the financial security. I think that's a factor, but I think it's about the OCD, which again is so much better. But obviously, one thing her therapist tells her is, she says, you want to change Adam. You don't accept Adam the way he is. That's not love. But when Anna, and their therapist has been telling her that for a while, but when Anna tells me that, I'm like, no, but it's not like, I want to change too, and I do change, and I have changed. I've changed a tremendous amount even before I met her. So it's not like Anna is saying, hey, I know you love watching football with your friends. I don't know why I take that example. I don't love watching football. I actually do like watching football. But I know you love watching football and drinking Bud Light with your friends, but I don't like that, so you can't do that anymore. It's not like she's telling me I can't do things that I enjoy or things that I value doing. She's saying, I want you to have more freedom and more recovery, which is exactly what I want. There's nothing I want more than that. But that's a lie, because sometimes what I want more than that is just comfort and safety in the moment, and that is why I don't have more freedom. And I do have a tiny bit of awareness that if this does end, and Anna said this repeatedly over the last year, that, because this great personal transformation that I'm not going to talk too much about because it's her story, but this tremendous rebirth transformation that she had came out of the ashes of her last relationship, an extremely painful breakup, someone she'd been with for 6 years basically just disappearing on her. And she says she's so glad it ended because as horrible as it was, as hellish as it was, that's what gave her the motivation to change. And she loves who she is now so much more. And she's just, so much stronger. And she said sometimes maybe that's what you need. And that upsets me when she says that. As I'm saying this, I'm saying these are things she said for at least the last year. So clearly this isn't coming out of the blue. But I was blindsided. So this conversation last night was very, very painful. But at a certain point she said, listen, I think we're both saying things that we haven't really thought about. Why don't we just take a few days and not talk? And I was going into this regret thing, which one of my resolutions, one of my commitments is to not go into regret. And I haven't been going into regret. Or even if I go into regret in my head, not vocalizing regret. I've tried to eliminate statements like, I wish I had or I should have, basically, because I say those a lot. But I was indulging them. What I was saying is I wish, because as I shared 2 weeks ago, a few days before I left San Francisco, I had these non-specific doubts emerge about the relationship. Not even about her, just this feeling of like, I don't know about this. That's all it was. There was no content. It wasn't like, I don't know about this because, it was just this feeling of discomfort, of disquiet. And I shared that with her, and that was very, very painful for her. And then we talked and we patched it up and we were closer than ever, but then I left to go to New York and she left to go to Greece. And I think, and she kind of acknowledged, if I hadn't had that if I hadn't expressed that to her, she might not have been open to this guy the way she is open to this guy. And maybe that's what I wanted. Maybe at some level my brain, which is always going to be working behind the scenes to protect me, and the biggest threat is the greatest vulnerability, and the greatest vulnerability is her. So maybe there was some part of me that's like, why don't we sabotage this a little bit before you part ways? Before she goes to this conference where she's going to be seeing a lot of very intellectual Greek people who are interested in psychedelics, like sort of her perfect demographic. So, So I was saying that, like, I wish, if only that. But the other thing I said is if I was in San Francisco right now, I think this would feel very different. If we were having this conversation right now, this would feel very different. And she said, it would. Because when I'm with you, all I can hear is my heart. I can't hear any of these doubts in my mind. When we're together, my heart is louder than anything. And she also said, the same sentiment, that she, loves me so much, that her heart wants me. She knows that, but that her mind has a lot of concerns. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I just bought a plane ticket right before, like 45 minutes ago. I'm going to go back to San Francisco in a few days. It's very easy when I feel slipping away to be like, oh, this is what I want, and it is what I want. But yet, there has been this feeling of disquiet at times. Maybe it is, I don't know. I can't say maybe it is for that. I mean, I love her. We have an amazing time together. This relationship works on every level. So why did I feel this fear, this doubt? Well, again, maybe it was just vulnerability. And maybe that vulnerability triggered me expressing that, and maybe me expressing that has triggered all of this that may take her away from me. And I think part of my pessimism at this point is this guy, he's not based in SF, though he has enough money that he can be wherever he wants. But she feels like something is missing. It feels like that's hard to come back from. Because I don't feel like anything is missing with her. I don't feel like anything is missing with her. And if there's that imbalance of sort of how she can suffer in the relationship because of me and I don't suffer because of her, and she feels like something is missing, yeah, maybe it's better for her if we're not together. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Tune in next time to, I don't know. Yeah. I'll see what happens. I guess that's all I can do. I'll see what happens. All right. Well, yeah, that's it for now.